Hello and namaste everyone. I'm Navinder Singh. Today we are going to be covering a very interesting topic which I came across recently when one of my colleagues in New York asked that why India doesn't have big hedge funds, being India being the $5 trillion economy in the next 5 years. That's a major economy, and being a close to $3 trillion economy right now, why India doesn't have very big, large, known hedge funds. So this got me interested, and I tried to dig out that what were the reason that India does not have big, large funds which operate from India and invest in India. So while doing my research, I came across this very interesting article by Andy Mukherjee in Bloomberg, and where Mukherjee has tried to point out that why India doesn't have large hedge funds. And due to my research, in the meanwhile, I came across many other reasons too that why uh, Indian government does not encourages the large hedge funds to be formed in India. So one of the reasons there are no big hedge funds in India is because government from the starting had been very skeptical about the way hedge funds operate. So before I explain you why hedge funds do not operate in India on a largely basis, though there are many hedge funds which are operating in India, but they are not based out of India. They are operating from US or most of the time other European countries like UK. Some of them also operate from Germany. As far as I know, there are few and good hedge funds in Singapore too. So before I start with the reasons, let me tell you what a hedge fund is. So hedge fund is called in a very late term as a rich man's mutual fund. So it's just like a mutual fund, but it's only for the rich people. Uh, so the reason being that the hedge funds operate out of the boundaries of many of the market regulators, and since they take money from the rich people, they don't have to always adhere to the regulations which have been formed or which are made to protect the individual investors or the small investors, so they can operate in many peripheries where most of the time pension funds and mutual funds are not operated, or they don't have the permission to operate in. So starting with that, I came across the recent this article which says that which lines the problem that why India is killing, or why India have a policies which are so aggressive to the hedge funds. So one of the reasons being that in so there was no scope of hedge funds in India before 2012 May. It was then that in May 2012, SEBI had issued the regulation for alternative investment funds and opened the way for the local hedge funds. Before these regulations, while foreign hedge funds were allowed to invest in the domestic equities, domestic firms were not permitted to launch such funds. However, after these norms, many domestic asset management companies applied for launching their own hedge fund, and some of them even got the license to be a hedge fund. But since it's only been last 6 years that these hedge funds have been formed, none of them hold a very big name in internationally or in the industry itself. Hedge funds located in India are less than $500 million in asset, and now I think they have, when they started in 2012, but now the figure has reached around $6 billion in recently, where you can see that they have marked, and they are called the Category 3 funds. So before I tell you what is Category 3 fund and what are Category 2 other categories, let's see what Category 3 funds are. So it's in India they don't call it a hedge fund. So what Indian government has decided, or the Indian regulators has decided to call it as an alternative investment fund. Funds. So these funds are exactly like hedge funds. They can invest into highly leveraged products, and can also operate out of the periphery of defined rules which are for the mutual funds or for the pension funds. Uh, so some of these funds are operating in India, and I got a list of these the funds which have been operating. And so I know few of the funds and people who work in these funds, but I won't name any of the funds over here. So these are the categories. These are this is a list. I'm sorry, of some of the funds which have been operating right now. So going back to the same article, that why India needs hedge fund right now. So the reason being that the reason India needs a hedge fund is because India right now is already a $3 trillion economy, and there is not a not a very efficient market over in India right now. The reason being that the reason that there is not an efficient market over here is, so when I say an efficient market, I'm not saying that the price discovery or the market itself is not is not efficient to progress. What I'm trying to say over here is that there are so many things which Indian markets lack right now. One of them being providing a good fair ground for exotic funds, for hedge funds, or for structured financial derivatives of structured financial assets to perform. One of the reasons being for such an embargo over these financial products is that the SEBI always believed, SEBI is the market watchdog for the Indian market, which stands for Security and Exchange Board of India. They always believe that most of the problems which occurred in the 2008 financial crisis, or even the financial crisis before that, which happened in the United States, was the reason behind those financial crises was that the funds or these highly leveraged structured products which were operating in those economies. But somewhere the regulators in India forget is that that these structured products and these funds actually have an economic value if they look closely. One of the reasons being that they often try to make the market more efficient. They try to gain from the inefficiencies of the market, and they really create wealth, and they do have an economic value if in terms of finance and in terms of being an economic student. I can assert to that. So one of the reasons being that hedge fund cannot operate in India right now is because they are not allowed to do a big shorts in India. So stock shorting, or an asset shorting is a process where you borrow a security or an asset from an individual or from an institution which you don't have, and then you sell it to the in the other markets or in the domestic markets, promising those promising the people you bought those assets or these securities from is that you will be returning them those assets after a while, and plus you will be giving them an interest. So one of the reasons being is that the SEBI had always been skeptical when it comes to big shorts. But one of the reasons that I believe that the shorts should be allowed, or the long short strategies which hedge funds often take should be allowed, is because shorting allows really investors to punish the companies or the boards who are not doing good while uh, earning profits and generating some wealth for their investors. So it's a good way of eliminating those companies, or as the finance ministers recently quoted, the dwarf companies who just exist but they don't produce an economic output, neither for the economy, neither for the markets, for the and for their investors too. So that is the reason that most of the hedge funds are not able to operate in India right now. Another reason being that the hedge funds have been taxed very heavily and very savvily, and so that is another reason that it discourages the investors. So in this article, it has already been quoted that the recently government increased the tax bar from 42% to 42% from 35%. I think the tax tax rate has again gone down, but that is something which we will have to see in the next coming months, that if they really going to bring down the tax rate to encourage the hedge funds in the country. One of the reasons I believe that there should be more hedge funds and government should encourage the hedge funds is that India is such a big country with such a huge potential of its economic growth and market growth, and still, most of the people, most of the rich people, invest either in gold and property. And for a finance perspective, and for and anyone who knows basic things about finance, is that gold and property are never a good hedge against the inflation, against the market. They can sometimes act as a good investment, but that is not always a safe bet to put your money in. And plus, they are very illiquid assets, so they have their own challenges and drawbacks. So another reason being that I think this article quotes that too, that India is, yes, exactly. India is right now home to more than 343,000 millionaires. I believe this number would be way above uh, if all the people who are millionaires pay their tax and actually come out and say that how much money and wealth they own. But leaving this apart, so we can see that there is a potential where there are many rich people in India who would love to invest in such funds and gain a good profits from their investments. So there is a market, there is a demand for hedge funds, but the only reason is that there are no favorable regulatory policies in India right now. So we'll see that the hedge fund, as I told you, comes under the category 3. So category 1 is defined as a venture capital, which again are the private equity funds which invest in the other companies. And category 3 talks about the leverage hedge fund products. And category 2 is like all the funds in between. So it can include a mutual fund, a pension fund, or any other type of trust fund which operate in the financial market. So we have seen that recently that the category 3 funds have grown dramatically. So I think the Indian regulators needs to bring out more and more regulations, legislations to favor hedge fund industry in India. Another reason being to favor the hedge fund industry is that it's not only gonna make the market more efficient and increase the potential sources of investment for the people, but it also sometimes have a very good value or a very good stand in the corporate governance, because when hedge funds tend to own some of the large shares in the corporations, they tend to push the interest of the investors rather than the interest of the promoters or the directors of the company. So again, with that being said, I will be signing off now. I'll share this article. It's a very good article for anyone to read. Go through this article and let me know your views, and let me know what topics you want me to cover in the next video. Kindly share this video and subscribe to my channel if you really love finance, economics, cryptocurrency, because this is the area I will be touching a lot in the next coming months. Thank you, and bye-bye.